Now, we got into this tangent. That was a great explanation, by the way. But we got into this talking about it in relation to the Colares incident. So, what about that incident, and maybe some more details of exactly what happened would help here. But what about that incident made Hal Puthoff and Jacques Vallée and these guys go, yes, matches all the observables. We think this one's real.
You'd have to ask them. I think it was the evidence. And the testimony, if you will, by Ochoa and military personnel that reported to him, it was very well documented. So, you may consider Colares as almost the Roswell of Brazil. They had a lot of manpower behind this, and Ochoa was a serious dude. He wasn't just some guy who flights of fancy. He was a 4-star general
in Brazil.
In Brazil, yeah. So you have to look at it from that perspective. They're not amateurs by any stretch. So I think that probably is one of the reasons why that. But that's just one example. That's just an incident. That's it's at the end of the day, it was very interesting to me. I don't know how valuable it was. It didn't change anything for me. It didn't change my view or my being. I've always told people my background. I went to college to study science. I've studied microbiology, immunology, and parasitology. Not parapsychology, parasitology, the study of parasites, microorganisms. And then later in my career, I was an investigator, special agent. So, I was always considered myself just the facts man kind of guy. I'm not really interested in innuendos and supposition. I just give me the data and we'll let the data speak for
Picked the
itself.
wrong field for that.
Yeah, boy, ain't that the truth, brother? Man, you ain't kidding. Yeah, don't I know? So again, we tried to approach the UAP topic the same as we did anything else, right? Whether you're hunting terrorists or spies or you're hunting UFOs, there's an applied methodology when you're looking at these things. It's not just grandma saw some lights in the backyard. I mean, we're well beyond that. We're using really sophisticated capabilities. You've got some of the best trained individuals, like on the Spy One radar. People don't realize this, but the radar operator on the USS Princeton was also Top Gun trained. People think, oh, only fighter pilots go to Top Gun. No, they don't. The radar operators can also go to Top Gun, and they are there to support these guys who are flying combat missions, these guys and gals. And so I remember Kevin Day actually explaining one time that it was for days it was raining UFOs at the Spy One radar. So what is a Spy One radar? So let's say this is a radar. So radar were really invented towards the end of World War II. They were used to try to identify enemy aircraft that were coming in over the horizon. Before you could hear them, before you see them, you want to know that they're coming so you don't get surprised. But radar data back then, and radars were very primitive. They basically sent out a signal, and that signal bounced off an object and returned back to the radar array. The radars we have now, the multi-arrayed radars, are kind of like a super type of radar, where you have, rather than just one radar, you've got multiple radars, all in slightly different frequencies, so you can get really good pinpoint fidelity on what you're trying to track, okay? And also, you can also send these signals way far. You can adjust. You got to be a little careful with this, but it's a lot smarter technology. So you get a lot more fidelity. And in this case, the Spy One radar, as you see up here on the Princeton, this could pick up a baseball at 80,000 feet. Now think about that.
Whoa,
80,000 feet, right?
That's
look, if
you ain't breathing up there.
No, you're talking about probably 17 miles away.
Yeah.
And you're tracking with an electronic piece of equipment a baseball. I mean, that's it could probably even do more than that, but that's what they claim. And then you have airborne radar, right? You have, like, for example, the E-2 Hawkeye, which is a radar platform, flying radar platform. If you pull a picture up of an E-2 Hawkeye, I can explain that for you a little bit too, because it's important, because these are the radar systems that were being used and are used even today to prosecute combat missions. So this is an E-2 Hawkeye, and you can see that big dish on the top, and that's a radar. It's a radar. That's all it is a flying radar. And you can dial in and tune into, with a great deal of fidelity, objects, and it gives you this air control and supremacy in the sky when you're flying combat missions. So you've got sea-based radar and airborne radar and some land-based radar, all detecting the same thing, while at the same time you have gun camera footage, while at the same time maybe FLIR pod footage, while at the same time you have pilots that are also actually seeing this thing. So let's count these up for a second, right? So you've got maybe 5 or 6 sources of information, different collection capabilities, all reporting the same event at the same time, at the same place, under the same circumstance, right? So if this was a court of law, I've told people, look, we're beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, this is the same equipment we use to, put warheads on foreheads, and it works. So, you're questioning it now when we've been using it for decades and it works. So this is why I think, if ATIP contributed anything, it contributed a level of rigor behind the UAP topic from a national security issue. And I want to be clear, because a lot of people say, fear mongering, it's a national security threat. I never said it was a threat. I said it's an issue, because we don't know if it's a threat. In government parlance, it's a very simple calculus to determine if something is a threat. There's only 2 pieces. It's capabilities versus intent. Now, we've seen some of the capabilities. We have no idea the intent. So it's impossible to say it's a threat. And so one of the examples I use a lot of times, and I don't mean it to scare people, but this is kind of how I see the issue from a national security issue. You live in a beautiful area here. I won't say where, but
people know it's Hoboken. It's cool.
Do you lock your front door at night before you go to bed?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, me too. And probably most Americans, even though you don't expect anything bad to happen, probably a good idea to lock your door before you go to bed.
Yep.
And some folks may even go the step further, and they might just check their windows to make sure they're locked, especially if they live on a lower floor, and they might even turn their alarm system on before they go to bed. Let's say one Sunday morning you walk downstairs to have a nice hot cup of coffee or tea, and as you walk downstairs, you see size 11 muddy boot prints in your living room carpet that were not there the night before. Now, no one's been hurt. Nothing's out of place. Nothing's been stolen. But despite you locking the door that night before and checking the windows and turning on your alarm system, there are now boot prints in your living room carpet that were not there the night before. My question to you is that a threat? And so my response is, it could be if it wanted to be, so we should probably figure out how the hell they're getting into the house. Yeah. It's the same thing with this. We have these technologies that are being deployed over our controlled U.S. airspace, over our most sensitive military installations, and quite possibly that potentially interfere with our nuclear equities. Is that a problem? Well, if these things had a Russian star on the tail or a North Korean tail number, you're damn right. You'd be on the front page of every newspaper, right?
You were saying people inside the Pentagon, though, were kind of like when you literally couldn't say it had a sticker of another country on there. They're like, what are we worried about anyway?
Right.
So it's almost like they needed the branding to carry.
Brother, that just happened in 2022 on ABC.
Yeah.
Secretary of the Air Force Kendall said, "Yeah, we know they're there, but that's not really a priority right now. We don't know where they're from. That's not a priority."
Does that drive you nuts?
Well, let me ask you this: if a submarine were to pop out of the Potomac and it some sort of ballistic submarine that doesn't have a flag on it, would that be concern to you?
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. I mean, what do you mean? It's not a concern because we don't know that's insane. That's the antithesis. That's the opposite of national security. Yes, that is most important, because until you know whose that is, it can be a problem.
Yeah.
And so, it drives me crazy because, people say, well, we have other priorities. What other priority do you have than that? There's a technology that can come in unimpeded anytime, anywhere, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. But because you can't explain it, you don't want to have the conversation. I hate to tell you this, but that's a problem.
Yeah. Now, you talk about there being 3 possibilities, though, with these things, that they're malevolent, benevolent, or they're neutral. Right. I think one thing that's an interesting point to get into with this is the nuclear history, because you just brought it up yourself. So let's go there. When I look at the different sightings that have largely happened, not just in America, but in other places around the world, where these UAP are identified at often military bases where there are nuclear weapons, or on tankers like the USS Roosevelt or something like that, where there are nuclear weapons present.
Carrier.
Carrier. I'm sorry. So when I see
I only
that,
say that because my Navy buddies would be telling me, why
Yeah.
did you correct him?
yeah, listen, I'm from Jersey. Don't take it personally. But when I see these patterns and I see that despite us having this technology since the Manhattan Project in the 1940s, the fact that since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, no nuclear bombs have been detonated in a war footing type scenario, meaning they've been detonated in tests around the world and stuff, so they've been allowed to happen. When I see that and I hear stories like these things are fucking with our nuclear reactors and telling us like, no, like the old Bob Salas story, it's like they're taking matches out of the hands of a baby. It almost seems like they're watching us like a god a little bit, if this is the case, to make sure we don't destroy ourselves.
So I interviewed a number of eyewitnesses regarding that aspect of the phenomenon, and that is particularly during the Cold War, the height of the Cold War. They are witnessed in Russia and all scattered across the United States. And this launch control officer, Robert Salas, I'll never forget this. He said, well, James, the message I got when they shut our nukes off, it's almost like they were taking matches out of the hands of a baby.
I tend to think that it's almost like whoever they are, we can get into this later, be they future humans, be they aliens, be they some fucking civilization or something, it's like they're telling you, no, don't do that. You guys have gotten too much power. That said, your argument is more that, this looks a little more malevolent to me because they're showing us they can take our capabilities and they're fucking with whether or not these things are actually going to go into, whatever the pre-launch codes are, and who's to say like they wouldn't go off or something like that. My point is, why would it not have happened then? Why would it be the pattern that literally none of them have gone off since 1946?
Well, we made that decision. We made that. Nope, no one did that but us. We decided as a world we're not going to drop them on each other, at least not yet. But let's look at this temporally speaking. So in 1945, we vaporized almost 800,000 souls off this planet, dropping 2 bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, UAP did not stop that. They were not there when we were going from the atomic age to the nuclear age, okay? Which is, by the way, goes from kiloton yield to megaton yield, right? Yeah. Now we have the power to literally erase entire cities off the map, vaporize completely. There were nowhere to be found or stop us from testing these things in the Nevada desert. They were nowhere to be found to stop the proliferation now of nuclear weapons getting into the hands of countries like, North Korea, right? And all these other countries. So it went from one country, us, to now everybody's got nukes. Okay.
Kim Jong's a great guy. I trust him.
Yeah, that wonderful boyish face. And then you look at things like 3 Mile Island. You look at Chernobyl. You look at Fukushima. They didn't stop those, right? So there isn't any information to suggest that it's necessarily here to help. And they haven't stopped, world hunger and pandemics and things like that. So there really isn't a whole lot of information to substantiate that. It feels good. Oh, they're here to take matches out of the hands of children, and they always say, look what happened up in with the flight. I think it was November flight, might be Oscar flight, of our nukes, where an entire flight of missiles were brought down offline, allegedly by a UFO. People are like, oh, see, they're turning them off. Yeah, but in Russia they turn them on. Right, because they have an opposite where we have to put our fingers on the proverbial buttons. They have like a dead man switch. Their fingers are always on the button, and when it comes off, that's when they go. Proverbially speaking. So Russians are very clever.
Yeah,
assured mutual destruction. That's and right. So and over there, there's reports of them turning them on. So there is nothing to suggest that they're necessarily helping us. Now, let me put on 2 different hats here. Okay, one is a national security hat. And by the way, it's different than the way I feel. I can have 2 different perspectives, and
unbelievable.
Absolutely,
I didn't know that was possible.
Absolutely,
these days, Lou.
Yeah, sure. So there is my national security hat, right? Okay, what do I do see? I do see these things very interested in our military equities. I see their ability to interfere with our nuclear capabilities, and I see them particularly over our sensitive military installations. What does that look like to me? That looks like preparation of the battle space. It looks like ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. It looks like an active campaign to understand our capabilities. Now, that's my national security hat, right? So if you're paying me as a 3-star general to think on behalf of the American people, if there's even a 5% chance these things could do something bad to us, then my job is to make sure that gets down to 0%. Now, let me take that hat off for a second and put on my Luiz Elizondo hat. Okay. Do I see any evidence that they're here to harm us as a species or whatever it is? No, I don't. But let me now put on my special agent hat on, right?
Third hat.
Yeah, third hat. Now I got a whole bunch of them on the shelf,
Okay.
right? So you come to me and you say, Lou, listen, I've got this problem. I went to sleep last night and I had this crazy experience. I woke up and I was being taken somewhere I didn't want to go, but I was being taken there. Okay, well, that's kidnapping. It's federal charge. You've been taken away from against your will. Yeah, when I was there, Lou, they were touching me. They were doing these things to me, and it scared me. Okay, well, that's assault. Okay, another felony offense. Keep going, right? So that's not a nice thing. And, I've got daughters. If my daughter got into an Uber and she wanted to go to the mall and instead they took her somewhere else, that's kidnapping.
Yes.
Right? That's not a nice thing.
You're talking about experiencers who say they were abducted right now.
Who claim that they've been abducted, right? Abduction. Think of the word abduction.
Yeah.
That's a crime. That's a felony, baby.
Did you ever come across cases that you felt had a great burden of proof, evidence to prove that had actually happened? Because you know how a lot of people are skeptical of this.
Sure.
And to be fair, you and I were having a great conversation before the cameras were rolling about how, unfortunately, in this space, so many people are like, I just want to fucking believe.
Right.
And they believe everything, every single case, no matter what. And
Right.
it actually sets the stigma back further.
It absolutely does. And this is where we get into the conversation of true believers and true skeptics, right? They're really one and the same. I know they seem opposite sides of the spectrum, but the mentality is the same. And this is not an attack on anybody. So let me just preface that. But a true believer, no matter what information you provide them, they will always, always believe that everything they hear is correct. And then you have the professional skeptic that no matter what evidence is provided, they will never accept the fact that their narrative could be wrong. So those two folks, those two sides of the equation are really never my focus. People will always say, well, Lou, are you trying to tell us they're real? I'm not trying to tell you anything. My job is to provide the data and the facts and allow you guys to decide what it means to you. And this is why I've always said to people, don't shoot the messenger and don't ask me what I think, because it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what you think. There's so many people in the UFO community that want to tell you what they think because they have the answer, they have the solution. They're the only ones. They have a monopoly on thought. And unless you agree with them, then you're crazy, right? And that's across the board. I think the approach we need to take is, look, let's put all narratives aside, whether they're from outer space, inner space, or the space in between. Here are the facts. Here are the facts of what we are dealing with. We are dealing with a technology that is real. We are dealing with a technology that is interested in our equities. We are dealing with a technology that can outperform anything we have. That we do know. What do we not know? We don't know where they're from. We don't know what they want. We don't know what the intent. We don't know a whole bunch of other stuff. We don't know motivation. Maybe there is no motivation. Right? We're looking at things through anthropomorphic eyes. You and me are human beings, so we judge everything based upon it. That's why we give our dogs people names, because we are, whether we realize it or not, we are imposing our own understanding of what it means to be a human onto everything else and presume everything else is like us. But that's not necessarily the case, especially when you're dealing with things like, let's say, artificial intelligence, where it's binary. There is no motivation intent. It just is, right? And so we have to really limit ourselves from going down that temptation of assuming everything is like us, everything has motivation, everything has the same type of desires that we have. And we do that all the time. We do it subconsciously. And let me, if I can, digress here for a second. Hubris is really ultimately responsible for this, because we are a species where we have pride and ego and we have a narrative in our head. And rather than in the face of new data and facts, reframe our own narrative, we reject that data and hold on to our own narrative because it's this is what I believe, and therefore any new information must be wrong, right? And let me give you some examples. I went to, like I said, University of Miami, and I've always considered myself a disciple of science. I believe in the scientific method, scientific principles, right? I believe in physics. I believe in mathematics. It works. And when I was in college, I learned that it was the Greeks. So if you look at the modern human, Homo sapiens sapien, most anthropologists agree that modern humans have been around for the last 100,000 to 200,000 years, okay, as a modern human being. And if you look at that, it wasn't until the last 2,000 years that we realized there's only two dominant life forms on this planet. You are either a plant or you are an animal. It was the Greeks who recognized that, and humans being an animal. If you look at a 24-hour clock, right, so 200,000 years ago and then 2,000 years ago, it's really just the last maybe 10 minutes. We realize that. And it wasn't until the Renaissance, 300 years ago, during the days of Enlightenment, that we recognized and discovered an entirely other form of life on this planet that we've been sharing all along. That is neither plant nor animal, and that is the world of fungus. And so we tap ourselves on the shoulder and say, wow, what a great, great discovery. And it wasn't until the last maybe 5 seconds of our existence as modern man on this planet, last 120 years, think about it, that we had the technology to actually discover the true dominant or alpha life form on this planet. And in fact, if you take all the biomass of every plant and all the biomass of every animal and all the biomass of every fungus and add it all up together, it still does not add up to this hidden life form that has been on this planet longer than any of us. And that is the world of microorganisms. It's the things that are inside you that make you up, that live on the skin of the ISS space station and can thrive miles beneath the crushing depth of the Arctic ice. It's everywhere. And it wasn't until we could have the technology to curve glass and look through a little metal tube and famously shout the words, little beasties, did we discover for the first time the true dominant alpha life form on this planet that's been here all along. And so
until we discover the next one,
so
it's been
until
here all along.
100%, you're tracking, right? Until we discover the next one. And that's why people say, oh, this is the greatest discovery in UAP that mankind. No, it's not. It's just another one. We're always, if there's one thing mankind is right about, is that we're fact that we're usually wrong a lot of times. When I grew up in science, I was told, and this is recent, all life forms are based on ultimately the building blocks of photosynthesis. All life form. Well, that's not true. In fact, if you go to the deepest parts of the ocean, where there are these things called black smokers, these vents, heated vents, superheated vents underwater, volcanic vents, life is abundant down there, and it thrives off of a process called chemosynthesis. There is no light down there, and they're thriving because they are metabolizing and getting energy based upon chemosynthesis, the complete opposite of photosynthesis. So, you know, we keep learning all these new fundamental realities about what life can be and what it can't be. And then you have what I call the human issue, because it is definitely a human issue. We have 5 fundamental senses by which we judge the universe. And if you can't touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, etc., it's very hard for us to understand anything that's beyond that. And yet, the reality is most of the universe lies beyond that. So what do I mean? Take my cell phone, for example. If I had the ability to see in cell phone vision, right, I would perceive the world through Wi-Fi and through 5G and through GPS.
Yes. And
I would see a completely different reality. It's just like you and me sitting here right now. I'm using my eyes. Behind you, there's a reality that you can't perceive. I can see it perfectly. And right now behind me, there's a reality that I can't perceive or interact with, but you can, right? And we're in the same place. We're in the exact same place. And there's 2 completely different worlds that you and I are experiencing right now. Then you have, so where I live in Wyoming, beautiful night skies. And if you look at the skies, wonderful for stargazing. If you look at that same part of the night sky with a radio telescope, you're going to see a completely different reality. You're going to see nebula, and you're going to see things, gas clouds there in different frequencies that we can't perceive. And that's reality where most of the universe lies, in the ultraviolet and the infrared spectrum, the X-ray spectrums. And that's the real universe. We perceive a tiny, tiny, tiny little sliver of what really is there. And we pretend, therefore that's the universe. No, that's actually 0.02% of the universe. And then you've got a scalability issue. Okay. What do I mean by scalability? If you look in any direction around you in space, the scientists say that the universal horizon of light, the farthest we can see into the depths of our universe, is roughly 13.6 to 13.9 billion with a B, billion light years in any direction, right? And we are this infinitesimally speck in the middle. What is a light year? It is the distance that light can travel in 1 year. So let's do the calculation here real quick for your audience. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Okay, seven and a half times around our planet in 1 second. Imagine how far you can go in a year, and now multiply that by 13.9 billion. So if we are in the middle, I can see that way 13.9 billion, that way 13.9 billion. That's roughly 27 billion light years across. And that's just the visible universe. Scientists actually believe that that's only 10% of the actual universe. And in just our universe, we can see more stars in our visible universe than there are grains of sand in all the beaches in all the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the universe is actually 100 billion light years across and possibly bigger, compared to us, that is enormously huge. But then look at Avogadro's number real quick. And this is important because I'm about to make my point here. If you compare one hydrogen atom, okay, to
we got it
20
on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that is to the power of 23. 1 times 10 to the negative 23. That is roughly one hydrogen atom is roughly the same scale and size as to us as we are to the universe. Meaning we have that infinite amount of space and scale inside every single human being. But as humans, we can only interact with maybe 1 or 2 orders of magnitude up or down because this is our size, right? We kind of smack right in the middle of the universal scale if you were to have a scale. Most of the universe is either too big or too small for us to even interact with. That's reality. That is the realness of the human experience. But because we live in this little narrowly defined where we can only perceive a little bit and our scale is either most of the universe is too big or too small, therein lies most of reality. That's where the universe is. And so for us to say that, oh, well, the only things out here and, there's a bunch of nonsense and hooey, man, I mean, that's math. That's reality. That's real, right? That's not Lue Elizondo telling you that's real. And so hubris is something that we have to be careful of because we're always trying to squeeze Mother Nature into a little box that we have invented, we've created. But Mother Nature doesn't operate that way. She doesn't need to be confined to a box. We're the ones living in a box. We just don't realize we do it to ourselves.
Which means that things that we may put outside of our box through Hollywood or stories that we tell, such as like alien abductions, may actually be something that we need to consider because there are things that don't have an explanation in our current physical world as we know it. There was a great quote in your book. You talked about the former director of something at Skunkworks, who said impossible is impossible until we fucking done it.
That's right.
And I put the fucking in there because I'm from Jersey.
Well, you're right.
You understand what I'm saying? So these things, you had to open yourself up to the stuff
Brother,
that you would have previously said was
today's
crazy.
technology is yesterday's magic.
Yeah.
And that is fact. Everything that we do, we're time and time again, we put these limitations. There was a time we said, well, Earth is the only thing, object that's made of rock, and the heavens are up there, and there's nothing else out there. And yet, this is all the while that we knew meteors existed. Rocks were falling to Earth all the time. How do you explain that, right? They're coming from somewhere. There was times where we would always presume certain things. We'd never break the sound barrier until we did it, right? There's all these things that science has said, well, we can never do. Until we do, and then it becomes routine. And it's not science's fault. It's our fault because we make these presumptions and assumptions of what life should and could be, not realizing that we are overlaying our own human experience onto the data. So we are, by necessity, the fact that we're humans, we're already polluting the data because we have a hard time looking through any other lens than a human lens. And so we tend to ascribe human emotion, human intent, human motivation to things that may not be. And so back to where we were talking about the science, and this is why I bring up this long, drawn-out story about size and perception and things like that. People say, well, are they from outer space? They could be. But I've always said it could be from outer space, inner space, or frankly, the space in between. As you said, are these things interdimensional? Could be. Are they aliens from outer space? Could be. Are they as natural to this planet as we are? Absolutely. Is it to the point where now technologically we're at a point where we're now beginning to interact with them, just like the little beasties? Could be. Are these things maybe from underwater? Because look, we've only mapped less than 10% of the ocean floor. We know
all the above.
Or all the above, right? We know more about the surface of the moon than the depths of our own oceans. I had a submarine commander once tell me, and he was dead serious. It's a little funny. I'll share it with your audience, but it's both disturbing and funny. They were tracking an object. These submarines are huge. I mean, some of these are, imagine the Empire State Building sideways underwater, right? These are big, big submarines. Some of these 500 feet long, right? Big boys. And you're traveling underwater and you pick up something on sonar that's traveling roughly between 400 to 500 miles an hour underwater, and it's bigger than you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I asked the commander, I mean, honest question. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, well, in those cases, what do you do? And he looked at me. No, he looked at me straight face. He said, "We go around." Like, a dumb question makes sense. Yeah, I guess I would too. Just like that. Totally like, yeah, we go around. I'm like, yeah, I'm not messing with that either.
Cool.
So, there's a lot to this conversation, and the problem is that we're always going back to the original conversation we were having about, people on both sides of the spectrum, skeptics and believers. Both of them are stuck to their own narrative. Both of them in the face of new information, even though that we live in a world that's dynamic. They are very hesitant to change their opinion because they're stuck in a static mindset. But the universe isn't static. The universe is dynamic. So we have to recalibrate the way we think. We can't think in a static way. We have to be dynamic with the universe if we want to understand the universe. And so that's kind of my philosophical perspective on the topic.
It's great philosophy. I appreciate all the depths of that. I was riveted by some of that. But again,
as you're snoozing, taking a nap, and
I'm not. I haven't been snoozing one
no,
second.
I'm kidding.
I'm already extremely pissed off that we only have 3 hours though, because holy shit, is there so much here? Like, you're saying something every 2 seconds. I'm like, oh, we could go there, we could go there, we could go there, we could go there.
Hey, so I can come back anytime you want, brother.
All right, we're definitely doing that then. But
we'll see. We'll see about what people say online. I'm sure.
Listen. Just don't look at the comment section. Okay, just don't do that because people are going to say what they're going to say in there. But going back to the abduction stuff, because we keep getting off it. Did you come across cases that again? It's not like you were there, so you can't say 1,000% this happened. But did you come across one out of the billion people who are like, yeah, I was abducted and fucked by an alien, where you're actually like, ooh, wait, might have happened?
So for me, the most compelling, remember, we go back to data, right? Data. Let the facts speak for themselves. There was some situations where an individual had claimed to come up close and personal with a UAP, and they sustained a medical consequence. Now, I'm not a trained medical surgeon, right? I'm not. But we had people that were medical professionals that were supporting us. And they were working with individuals who could quantify and qualify. They could quantify and qualify medically changes in the person's physical health. They've actually sustained injury. So there are several doctors. I want to be very careful because I don't want to mention their names until I'm publicly allowed to say their names because for privacy reasons. I don't want them getting slammed and harassed. But there is enough information to substantiate from a medical perspective that we've had military service members and intelligence officials, intelligence individuals harmed by these things.
Rendlesham 1980. I had Nick Pope in here to break down that whole thing.
Brother, those two guys are on full 100% medical disability. I saw the paperwork from the U.S. government, and it says because the reason why the medical disability by the U.S. government, your tax dollars are paying for it because of their involvement in Rendlesham. And that's just one example. And thank God it was for late Senator John McCain, because if it wasn't for him, these guys would have been totally toast. He was the one who got their medical records that were classified by the Air Force, right? Classifying your medical records. Who do you think you are that you can do that anyways? It's my medical records. They classified them. And if it wasn't for John McCain getting them declassified, these guys would be suffering today, probably dead.
Yeah.
So, and that's just one example. I mean, there are other individuals. I can tell you right now, a very senior, former senior CIA official, very, very senior, like one of the top guys. I do not have permission to talk about his story. But him and his spouse came up close, had a very terrifying experience, and actually a foreign object was removed from
his body,
from her. So it was a husband and wife team.
Okay, without saying their name, what was the nature? Of the
I want to be really careful. There's HIPAA and patient confidentiality, so I'm sure that person is going to probably at some point come out. This is why Congress is now taking this topic seriously, because there are people like, hey, yeah, guess what? That senior dude who I know is now coming and telling me about their experience. People are feeling that it's a little bit more safer now to come out and have this conversation with the right people. We are trying very hard to create an environment where people feel safe. They can come out and talk about their experiences, whether they worked on legacy programs or that they were somebody under medical care by the U.S. government. These are all little factoids that most people have no idea even exist.
Well, you talk about your own experiences too, and it hasn't affected you health-wise like some of these other ones, but
It hasn't. No.
you talked about how, I guess like shortly after being assigned to this desk for the first time, you started to notice orbs in your house in Kent, and your wife did too. Can you tell me what happened
and
there?
let me be clear, because I can't tell you with a straight face that they're UFO related or they're UFOs. I can't.
All right, that's good. So you're open-minded on that.
Oh, 100%, brother. Yeah. Let me tell you again. Let's go to the facts, right? I get into this program ATIP, and here's the facts. We start seeing these green luminous balls of light diffuse, some the size of maybe a volleyball, some the size of a little baseball. And they're witnessed not only by me, otherwise I wouldn't have said anything. They're witnessed by my spouse, and they're also witnessed by my kids, and even some of our neighbors are seeing these balls of light.
Outside your house?
Inside the house.
Inside
down the hallway, just going by, almost like a really bizarre.
Volleyball up to that size?
Yeah, but remember, diffuse, right? So it's not like it's the glow pattern comes up to about here. And then so these are being witnessed. And at the same time, other individuals that were part of ATIP are also having a similar experience. So what we do know is that other people in the ATIP program were also experiencing this. Now, could it be ball lightning? Sure. Could it be St. Elmo's fire? Sure. Could it be faulty wiring and now it's ionizing the air local around it and it's creating these luminous plasma balls? 100%. What makes it interesting is it wasn't just us. It was other people in ATIP who were also experiencing it while they were working in ATIP. Before ATIP didn't have the problem, and after ATIP didn't have the problem, only during ATIP. So that's the facts. But whether they were actually UAP or related UAP, I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Approximately how many times did this happen, and over what type of time period are we talking about?
So 2010 to probably 2017, 16, probably, so I say like once every couple months. People are like, oh, then, every 2 months. No, because sometimes you'd see it back to back in a couple of days, and then it might be 2, 3, 4 months. And then all of a sudden 3 more days go by and you're seeing these green balls of light in the house, even and outside as well. So there wasn't any pattern. That's one thing, obviously trying to find a pattern to this. Is coming every Tuesday.
It's random.
Yeah, random. And of course, we're asleep at night and I'm not at home during the day. So I'm only seeing them while I'm at home. And same with my family. My kids are at school. My wife is working too. So it could have been much more frequent, but we just weren't there to see it.
Did you report this to Put Off or Davis or people on the ATIP team?
Yeah, they call it, they had a term for it. They called it high strangeness.
High strange. What do you mean?
I don't know.
Ask
them. I don't know what the hell it means. They call it high strange. Okay. Yeah, strange. You're right.
Did they come in and investigate it though? Like, did they try to set up anything?
No, they had no issue with it at all. They said it's very, very normal for that to happen. They
said it was normal.
Yeah,
so someone on the ATIP team, counter intel guy, is now seeing...
Not counter intel. Oh, yeah, I was counter intel.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is now seeing orbs in his house while you're working on this project about these UAPs.
Right.
And the team that's in charge of UAPs doesn't want to go investigate that.
No, they're saying that they're having the same issue too. They're like, well, what do you want to do about it? Well, I don't know.
Set up a camera, Ghostbusters, get Bill Murray in there, do something. Right?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, once every few months, you'd have to have a lot of cameras. I don't have a setup like this. I can't afford anything this fancy.
Listen, I'll donate these.
We're
going to find Man Bear Pig in there, baby. Let's get Al Gore on the line.
There are other individuals that are, I think, going to be coming out of the shadows here soon that will probably also expound upon their experiences. This is really just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Fortunately for us, it was just orbs. For other people that had other experiences, not my story to tell. I did not experience it with them, but it was peculiar. It was peculiar.
All right, real quick, I just gotta go to the bathroom. We'll be right back.
Well, that's because I have the mentality of a first grader. I've got to keep shit simple because I'm with you. I tell people all the time, when I walk into a room, the IQ drops about 20 points automatically. So, I gotta color by the numbers, man. Otherwise, I I can't keep up.
All right. Well, let's get back on. We're good over here? All right. All right, we're back. Lou, one of the things that you laid out throughout your book, just for like context, I thought was really good, was a lot of the alleged and I would say even like known history involving UAP that have been witnessed or incidents that have occurred. And what you explained is that once you were first brought into this, you started going through whatever government documents you could, which includes stuff that we could all get through FOIA, and then also included some things that would be like classified that you couldn't.
Yeah,
take
there
out
was
of the
actually
facility.
a lot of classified. You'd be surprised. There's actually a lot now. They have since, I think, tightened the reins on it and probably put some restrictions. But in the early days, on the classified system, on the high side, what we call high side, the top secret system, you could just do a word search and just you avoid some of what we call the dirty words
Yeah,
that
hot
get you in
words,
trouble.
right?
Yeah, hot
Yeah.
words. But man, you could find all sorts of great intelligence out there, man, about these things. And it was really, really helpful. It was really helpful.
How did you know? Yeah, you talked about these hot words terms like, oh, if you do that, you're going to get flagged and called in somewhere and maybe be pulled from the program. How did
Yeah.
you even know what those words were? Did you ask like how put off about that?
So where I was, we knew what some of those hot words would be, especially if there were people in a legacy capacity that didn't want you to know. So certainly like, UFO, right? Unidentified flying object, no surprise there. But you could look at things like anomalous. Another would be unidentified aircraft, because a lot of time people would write a report saying we have an unidentified aircraft doing, Mach 22, right? Which there's no aircraft that does Mach 22. Or you could also write in, for example, luminous as a word, which is bright, right? So when you talk about a luminous object in the sky, well, you would type luminous and then type in sky, and then all the reports about something that was luminous in the sky, right? So there's ways to do it. Now it could be a rocket, test rocket, right? Where now you could say, well, the rocket as it was ascending up to 25,000 feet created a luminous halo up in the atmosphere that was observed for the last, for 120 miles. And so that's a rocket test, obviously. But then when you have others where they're talking about luminous balls of light doing other things, and you're okay, well, that's not a test rocket, because rockets go in a very specific trajectory, right? And they don't change directions very often. So when you're seeing reports of these things maneuvering in a certain way over a certain country, the problem is it gets kind of difficult because a lot of the information is classified because of under the circumstances in which it was collected, right? So we classify information in this country for two reasons: to protect sources and to protect methods. It is in fact illegal to classify information simply for the sole purpose of trying to hide information that's of either illegal activity or malfeasance or even embarrassing to the U.S. government. You can actually look at it. There's a DoD directive I can show you at some point if you're interested. But the problem is that the government was doing that. They were classifying information simply because they didn't want to tell people the truth about UAP, and that's a problem. And so you have this data that's out there, and let's say we get this information from a human source we're trying to protect, or we have some information from signals intercept over a particular country. You don't want to broadcast that, right? You don't want your enemy to know what you're doing and where you're doing it. So you classify that information. But what you can't do is classify information that doesn't relate to the protection of sources and methods, right?
How does it not relate to it though if it's involved with UAP, which is like the ultimate like national?
There's no source. So perfect example. The fact that North Korea has a nuclear capability, that's not classified. Now, how those things work and what are they aimed at and how that's classified. Yeah, 'cause that's sources and methods. But the mere fact that country X has nukes, that's not a classifiable fact. The mere fact that we're not alone in the universe, that's not a classifiable fact, right? It's like Galileo when he first proposed that the Earth was not the center of the solar system, right? What happened? Well, we burned him on the stake, right? So he had to recant. That's not a classifiable fact. You can't restrict the citizens of a country from knowing, forgive the pun, an inalienable right. This is facts of life, of truth.
So you're telling me that all of our adversaries or countries out there that may not be necessarily benevolent, if you will, you're telling me that any weaponry they may have, including things that are beyond our imagination right now, let me just throw an example out there, some sort of biological warfare weapon that's not sarin gas or something more basic that we at least understand. You're telling me that all that right now,
Brother, look
if
at
it's not declassified, should be.
Here's the reality, right? Yes, it should be. Look, the fact that Russia has hypersonic weapons, that's not, we've admitted that. They know it. We know it. Everybody said it. We have news reports on it all the time. Now, how they work and how are they deployed and where are they deployed and what are their capabilities are, absolutely keep that classified because we don't want the bad guys to know that we know all of that. But the mere fact that they exist, that's not a classifiable fact. The fact that something exists. Now, you can classify a U.S. capability that exists because we don't want to let the bad guys know.
So what is the difference in the gray area with this and that? If we think, I'm just playing a hypothetical here because I want to know all of it, by the way. But if we have data on UAP that we think no one else may have or don't know if other people
that
have.
would keep classified because that's capabilities. Remember, so we're talking about sources and methods, and some of the methods by which we collect information is very classified. Where we're doing it, how we're doing it. You don't want the bad guys to know that. So you would classify certain things regarding capabilities, right? Again, North Korea has nuclear warheads. We know that. How they work and how they're used and the technology behind it, yeah, you protect that, of course.
Okay.
So there is some gray area. Excuse me. And there is also there are some incidents where the mere fact of something existing can be classified. So, for example, the fact that a U.S. government is involved in a particular mission under certain authorities like covert action, that is kept classified. We don't admit that we're involved in that effort. Okay, so you can, under certain legal circumstances, classify information and protect that information. But what you can't do is classify information that's not really related to source of methods or covert action, and that is trying to hide a fact about something that is not a classifiable fact. You know, it'd be like when the church tried to classify the fact that the Earth wasn't the center of the solar system. Well, that's reality. That's our current paradigm. And so, from my perspective, what drives me every single day isn't the UAP topic. People think, oh, UAP. It's not. It's ultimately. I took an oath to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I've never been relieved of that oath. And it turns out that in this particular case, it was the bureaucracy that we had some trouble with. The government, the U.S. government's really good at a lot of stuff. I mean, it's fantastic. The best country in the world, bar none. I mean, this country afforded my family opportunities no other country could or would. So I am extremely loyal to my country. I'm extremely loyal to my government. I'm extremely loyal to the citizens of this country. The problem is that there were people in government making decisions on behalf of the American people that they had no business making those decisions. They did not have the authority to do. And so for me, transparency and accountability. If you want a government to be accountable, you first have to be transparent. That's the only way you're going to get accountability. I had a conversation I'll share with you. I've started sharing it. It's very personal to me. So in the book, I talk about my mother passing away. My father recently passed away a couple years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. And it's life. You know, he literally died with his boots on. Old revolutionary from Cuba.
Your dad was a savage, dude.
Dude, he was something else. That's
Tell people who your dad was. Come on.
So my dad was a revolutionary. He fought with Castro against Batista in Cuba, and then when Castro went communist, he joined the CIA program, trained in Guatemala, and was part of the Bay of Pigs invasion. He was a member of the Brigade 2506, served several years in prisons in Castro's jails, and came back to the United States. He was a wounded soul. He experienced things there that I'm sure probably made him do certain things later in life. Incredible human being, very hardworking, came to this country with not a dime in his pocket and was self-made and all legitimate. And he instilled in me the sense of patriotism that I have. And he always told me things, about what it is to serve and why it's important to serve and sacrifice. But my father was also very intelligent. He was I don't know what happened because I didn't get his brains. But my dad was intellectual as well, And I remember, so my dad died 2 Father's Days ago. So Father's Day a couple years ago. And towards the end, he never told me he was dying, but I could tell. I could tell he was sick. He had cancer, but he didn't tell me. But towards the end, he stopped eating, and you can see when that starts to take its toll. So about a month before he died, I had an opportunity to go on a road trip with him. So we went from Wyoming.
A month before he died?
A month before he died. So we drove, dude, my dad was
Guy has cancer a month before
dying
he died,
from cancer.
Taking a road trip.
Yeah, and he's going road trip. So we went from Wyoming all the way down. Yeah, for me, I'd be laying in bed and eating Cheetos and all the crap I'm not supposed to eat and doing all the stuff I'm not supposed to do. He goes on a road trip with his son, and we go from Wyoming down to, I know, Miami, right, where all of us Cubans live. Where else
Shoot me now, mate.
Right. So we're going to Miami to see the family. And about halfway through, I think we're probably in Kansas somewhere, and I asked my dad, and I feel guilty about this because I asked him almost flippantly, like just to fill in, that, what do you think? So I said, Dad, what do you think is the greatest threat to humanity? Now I'm thinking to myself, is it a pandemic? Is it a disease? Is it warfare? Is it terrorism? My father sat for a moment and he looked at me and he said, corruption. And I said, corruption? Like what, financial corruption? He said, no. Corruption. Corruption is the act of sacrificing or giving away a core value you have in exchange for something else. So whether it's financial corruption, religious corruption, governmental corruption, moral corruption, you are trading away a core value in exchange for something. And so in government, when you do that, no matter where it is, if you are corrupt in government, you start chipping away at the very foundation of what democracy is. And my father warned me, he says, son, it's a very slippery slope from that to tyranny. It happens fast, believe me. It happens fast. So we have an obligation. This is a country where we have a government for the people and by the people. This is a government where if you're working in government, your job is to serve the interests of the American people, not the other way around. But people forget that in government. They start to think, no, actually, this is my job and I can start making decisions. And when they start making decisions on behalf of the American people that they're not allowed to, for example, in this particular topic, UAP, where you have people not informing members of Congress who have a need to know, who are supposed to know, they're not informing the chain of command, and they're not informing the President of the United States, that's a problem. That's illegal. You cannot do that, right? And either this Constitution and these rules mean something or they don't. And my response to them, look, if the rules don't apply anymore, that's fine. Just tell the American people because we know how to fix that shit. Trust me. We're pretty good at that. So, but don't these rules apply to thee and not to me, especially in government. You have a moral responsibility. You work for the people. And if you forget that, then you got to get the hell out of government. And this is, for me, this is part of transparency and accountability. It's not just the UAP issue. People say, oh, you're the UFO guy. No, I'm not. That's one thing. I am for government accountability and transparency. That's the only reason why this government works. That is the only reason we have faith and our faith and confidence in this government. That is the only reason why we have it, because it is supposed to be working the right way. And when it doesn't, because a few people make a unilateral decision that they don't want it to, that's a problem.
Okay, I appreciate that. And it's interesting, though, to hear the depth of that explanation, though. And but before I go into what I'm going to go into, I do want to say, you allegedly left the Pentagon in 2017. Do you guys ever really leave? Come on. You did say you haven't given up that oath, or so. Didn't he say that like 10 minutes ago, Leslie? He's like, I still have never given up that oath.
Look, I've said this before. I still maintain my security clearance. And I do consult with the U.S. government on an as-needed basis. I've always made that very clear. I've never hid that fact.
He has never hidden that. I'll give you that. But what I'm going to say is that you have any disclosure that you've done, including this book and everything since 2017, you've been very careful to do everything in a legal manner.
100%.
Your colleague, Chris Mellon, when he walked the paperwork into the New York Times in 2017, was able to do that because of, I forget the name of the law and the stipulation, but because of a recent stipulation that had been passed in Congress that allowed him to do that. Obviously, this is something you were involved with. So you guys have done it by the letter of the law. I do need to say that. However, you talk about a government for the people and by the people, and that you have, I believe you phrased it something like a moral responsibility to report to people if something has been done that is compromising that. And yet you are also a guy who has strong criticism of Edward Snowden. Now, let me be very frank on how I look at Edward Snowden. I look at him as being stuck between a shit and a fart, okay? Slippery slopes on both ends. On one end, he sees the United States Constitution being trampled on by the government through some weird legal maneuvers that basically obfuscated what they were really doing from the courts. And when he did try to take that up the chain of command, they told him, fuck off, get out of here. So that's one problem. On the other hand, though, the minute he goes and reports something and breaks his oath, right? He had an oath that said, I swear to secrecy, anything that I'm told to keep secret in the government. He is now like, maybe his situation is good enough to do that, but he now sets a precedent where the next person can say, oh, I reported what I reported because Snowden did it. And maybe theirs is 99.9% the importance of his, and so on down. And eventually, you're down at 1% and people are reporting everything that happens in government. So either way, it's a problem. However, if you have that moral obligation, like you said, could you not see how someone like Snowden felt the way he did? Totally different scenario from UAP, to be very fair here, but felt the way he did from a constitutional perspective to come out and make that type of
I have
disclosure.
no problem with the way Snowden felt. I have a problem with what Snowden did. He took his information and gave it to the Russians. That's the problem.
He gave it to the Russians?
Yes. That's the problem. He didn't come out and whistleblow. He came out and spied. He leaked information, classified information. I've never done that. I've never purported to do it. I don't support it.
What do you mean he leaked it to the Russians?
Brother, that's why he went to Russia
Well, his plane got down by, at the time, Vice President Joe Biden. He was flying
Brother, he's living in Russia.
I know, but he was flying
under protection.
I know, but he was flying from Hong Kong to Ecuador, and his plane got downed in Russia by Biden.
You know what he had with him, right? He gave up that it wasn't just a Julian Assange. This is not like Private Manning did, where they were just trying to expose some things, which by the way was still wrong. There's a right way and wrong way to do things.
Different situation.
Yeah, he actually compromised people who died. And that is a problem. There are people who are no longer alive right now.
So that's been disputed, though. There's people that say that there's no one who died as a result of it, though he may have risked it.
No, there are. Sir, I can't go into details. There are sources who died, and so from my perspective, I never took this information and ran to the hills. First of all, everything I've discussed has always been unclassified, and if I wasn't sure, I went to the Pentagon and I asked. So there is a big difference between going and running from your country and taking a bunch of classified information with you and releasing that. I never did that, and I never will do that, and I never have done that. And I think anybody who does that should go to jail.
Okay.
What I've done is to have the conversation. I've used the system to my advantage and to all of our advantage, I believe, I hope. And if you look at the track record, I think it's fair to say that we have, by doing it the right way, look, no one's gone to jail, and look how far we are. We now have Congress involved. We now have an arrow established. We now have rules and laws on the books, right? We have whistleblower protection. We have right now new legislation that's being proposed right now as part of the new NDAA. That's in the last 7 years, brother. Yeah. Think about it. We have gone further in disclosure in 7 years than in the last 70. And we didn't have to break any rules. We did it the right way. No one's gone to jail, and we can still have this conversation. So, I've always said there's a difference between doing things right and doing them right now. And I think if you have only one chance to do it right, then we need to do it that way. Now, could I be wrong? Sure. Are there other people that would have a difference of opinion and think it should be done the other way? Sure. And my response is, be my guest. Do what you want to do.
Like I said, it does need to be said that if you're looking at the record of what we know publicly about you and about the people involved, the things have been done more by the book, and there's something to be said for that, for sure. And I also think, this is also, I don't want to delegitimize it or anything by any means, but it's also such a pop culture phenomenon too, because people are like, oh, I want to know, right? So you can kind of develop, and this doesn't always go the right way, but you can develop like a fanboy syndrome where people want to know more, they want to know more, and you're going to give it to them. And
100%.
And that's why.
No, that's a problem, brother. And this is you're hitting the nail on the head for me. If I can just
Please.
jump in here. People confuse a messenger with a message all the time, and this is one of my personal struggles with people, because people will see someone and I'm sure this happens with you too, right? You have this persona that they have in their mind of you, of what you're doing, and then all of a sudden, you become the more important thing than what it is you're trying to communicate. And from my perspective, I try to remind people, look, I'm just like you. I have the same issues as you. I pay my bills like you. I have the same bias as you. I'm just a normal schmo. The only difference is I was in a position where I felt I needed to do something about it. I'm not a hero. I tell people that all the time. I have this horrible imposter syndrome that I have because people say, oh, you're a hero. No, I'm not a hero because I served with heroes and a lot of them didn't come back. So I know what a real hero is and I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy finishing the job that he was given to begin with. And frankly, I've always told people this before, anybody else in my situation, including you or anybody else who took the same oath I did and was in my job, would have probably done exactly the same thing I did. And arguably, you might have even done a better job than me. So I just happened to be the guy in the chamber at the time. And, okay, guys, here's the reality of things. But by no means, people say, well, you're leading this disclosure effort. I sure hope not. I really do, because I'm not the guy for that. This is a relay race, and my job is just to carry the baton as far as I can. And here you go. I'm not the guy who's going to win the race. I'm just one of the guys in a long chain to get us where we are. Look, you were just as part of this chain as I am. You're having this conversation with people right now in your audience. You have a global reach. Now think about that for a second. Think about that responsibility. You, today's day and age, right now, have a larger global audience than many of the world leaders just 10 years ago. You have that, right? So you are very much part of this effort as well.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.